Just a sound check. Dr. Hagigat, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Just a sound
evening,
check. Dr. Hagigat, can you hear me?
everyone.
I can hear you. We hear you very well. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
love the feedback. It happens sometimes. It might be because that one's not on mute, that one over there. But anyhow, the time is now 5:15 and we are going to do a roll call to begin our board meeting for December 6th, 2022. And I'd like to welcome everybody participating online via Zoom and here in person. Ms. Kim, may we please have a roll call for attendance?
Yes. Mr. Hale,
Here.
Ms. Bueno,
Here.
Mr. Carrillo, Dr. Vink,
Here.
Dr. Diaz.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. With the quorum present, we will continue. May we please have the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Jeffries?
Of the United States of America. And to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with justice and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our next item. Give me just a quick second because I have skipped over our most important part. Let me read off our tribute for our regular board meeting this evening. In partnership with tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. And with that, we will move on to our adoption of the agenda. Are there any recommendations for the agenda today?
Yes, President Trujillo, I ask that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented?
I'm Jessica Bueno, so moved. Alicia Vink, I'll second.
Thank you both very much. May we please have a roll call vote to adopt our agenda, Ms. Kim?
Mr. Hale,
Aye.
Ms. Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Vink,
Aye.
Dr. Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our motion passes and we can move on with our board meeting. With that, we'll move on to our awards, recognitions, and announcements. And I think I might have our first one this evening. All right, to begin, congratulations to Mr. Anthony Petrangeli at Kenilworth School for being named Arizona Fountain Hills Education Innovator. AZ Foothills Magazine recently celebrated their 25th year by honoring 20 individuals who have made a positive impact, inspiring and enriching the lives and well-being of others as leaders and experts across a wide range of disciplines. We are proud to announce our very own Mr. Anthony, Principal Anthony, our principal at Kenilworth, was named as Arizona Foothills Education Innovator. Principal Anthony, along with the other innovators, were featured in AZ Foothills November 2022 Innovators issue. Congratulations, Principal Anthony, for this well-deserved honor.
Phoenix #1 leadership has the opportunity to engage in social emotional learning time prior to leadership team meetings. Sessions use a community circle format, are grounded in CASEL competencies, and are applicable to take back to sites. In our recent SEL time, small groups were asked to build a structure using spaghetti, string, and tape. A marshmallow was to be attached to the tower. The teams were creative problem solvers with high-level critical thinking skills. Our leaders have enjoyed connecting, reflecting, and learning skills to stay balanced.
In partnership with the Arizona Sustainability Alliance and the Oakland Neighborhood Association, a number of community volunteers planted 18 trees on Capitol Schools campus on Sunday, November 20th. The trees were donated as part of a grant from the Arizona Sustainability Alliance and will help beautify the downtown Phoenix area. A special thanks is extended to the Alliance for selecting Capitol School and to our plant service team for installing the needed irrigation system for the trees. Yay, thank you.
And last but not least, Miss Teen USA Farhan Medhi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, recently visited Whittier School to read to kindergarten and first grade students. She read a book that she authored titled I Am ABCs, which teaches kids affirmations for each letter of the alphabet.
Thank you all very much for completing those along with me. Now we'll move on to item C1. We are doing a call to the public. And we've got a notice of public hearing to present the revised 2022-2023 budget for consideration of the residents of the district. Notice of the public hearing and the budget summary were posted on the Arizona Department of Education website and the district website. The public hearing is in compliance with ARS 15-905. And if we've got any speakers here, please. come.
Yes, we do, President Trujillo. I'd like to invite Dr. Rob Allen up to the podium to share with us the revision of the budget.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Hagigat.
Oh, okay, just confirming my steps. Yes, good evening, President Trujillo, members of the governing board, Dr. Hagigat, cabinet members and guests. Tonight, I will present for you the revised district budget for 2022 to 23, along with the key reasons for this revision and the most significant figures or data that impact the revision and the final numbers. So you were presented with a copy of the PowerPoint and the actual budget itself. We'll mostly refer to the PowerPoint, but we'll be able to refer to any page on the budget if you have specific questions. So my second slide. Each November, the governing board, on behalf of the superintendent or in care of the superintendent, you receive a letter from the Arizona Department of Education indicating whether or not the district is required to submit a revised budget in December. This is based on whether the adopted budget you approved in July differs from the ADE calculation of the budget by more than 1%. So the sample of the letter I have for you, this was provided to the superintendent on November 4th. It does say in red, revision is required. This one showed an $8 million deficit per se. Over on the right-hand side where it says this notification was based on the AFR data and a projected student count of 4,677. Would you please correct that right now? It was 4,170. So when this letter came out, the ADE had pulled ADM or average daily membership numbers from August. And those ADM numbers or student count was about little less than 4,200 students, okay? Again, that was pulled data, 8/15, August 15th was the date that data was pulled. So Dr. Hagigat gathered her staff. We looked at, we wanted to get more accurate numbers. And within, I'm going to just go to the very next slide. Within 3 weeks, ADE had recalculated student count. And on slide 3, you can see it was 4,710. So that increase of, almost 600 students greatly affected the revenue on the revenue side of the district. So they did not send a revised letter, but they provide this report. This is called the SACE Budget 25 report. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you can just see that this is just a report we're looking at frequently throughout the year to get our accurate student count, and it reflects, pretty much the funds we have to work with. So that data was captured on October 20th. So you can see from August to October, the October date was a little more accurate reflection of our actual student count. Thus, you can see ADE calculated about a $1.2 million difference in the district's adopted budget versus what ADE calculated. And that's over kind of in the oval on the right-hand side, in the parentheses, the 1,277,000. So because of the initial letter, we still move forward with an a revised budget based on the new and revised student enrollment or the student ADM counts. So on the next page, cover page changes. I'm comparing for you the cover page of the adopted budget and the cover page of the revised budget. And the little table you have in front of you is pulled from the kind of over there in the bottom right of the cover page of the budget. So on the adopted budget, the budgeted amount for M&O, and this is strictly 3 areas of funding on this page: maintenance and operation, which is the primary $50 million budget of the district; the capital fund, which is in the range of about $5 million, depending on your override and carry forward; and then the grants, primarily the federal grants, of which the ESSER grants comprise the bulk of that funding, but along with IDEA and Title I and the various other grants. So you can see in your adopted budget, the M&O adoption was $54,106,000. Capital was $4.6 million. The federal projects were $70 million, making the total $129 million. So now for the revised budget, the maintenance and operation is now $56 million. So a logical question is, on the previous page, I just showed you a deficit. Here, I'm showing you the budget has actually increased. The very next table I walk through will show you how that changes. And the capital also increased by about $800,000, and we'll walk through a little bit of the change in that too. And the federal projects declined actually from 70 million to about 56 million. And we'll walk through a little bit of the description of how that changes too. So questions so far about either any of the tables or the figures you've seen so far? Okay. I think the next slide is probably the clearest description of the changes. So I have in my sidebar the primary changes from the July adopted budget compared to the revised budget. And you see 4 columns, see primarily the descriptions of the budget category. You see the numbers or the values or the figures that were included in the adopted budget. And then you see the values or the figures in the revised budget. So the number one factor I put at the top was our student count. The adopted budget was built on an estimated student count of 4,886 students. And that is an unweighted count. That's actually the 100. When the budget was built in January, it was an estimate. How many students did we anticipate would be in school in August? On the revised budget, I've shown you that ADM has now, ADE has calculated I think it was about our 45th day, and our projected 100th day count will be about 4,700 students. So that decline of 176 students, that immediately leads to a reduction in our revenue control limit. Revenue control limit is simply take the per pupil amount for students, multiply by the number of students. And that calculation is the primary budget factor for M&O. The second line, weighted student count. Every student gets a weighting. It's a multiplier. For elementary students, every student is multiplied by 1.15. So it increases the student's value. It's just part of the school finance system. And so our weighted count went from 5,665 to 5,460. And then we added the group B weights, which are the group B weights you get weighted for primarily the special education students. And that number actually increased slightly from the adopted budget. So the real count of special education students actually has increased from estimate. The base level amount per student, every student is multiplied by $4,775. That's how you get your primarily your revenue control limit or the majority of your M&O budget. You take that 606,000 kids, multiply by the 4775, and you get your base support level of that 31 million. On the adopted budget, you see it was 32 million. So, and again, the reason it declined, the student count declined from what was estimated in July versus what was ADE as projected as of October. Okay. The revenue control limit, there's another line item there. The transportation revenue control limit is then added in. So that total revenue control limit of in July, 33.8 million compared to 32.8 million. So a decline of about $1 million for the adopted budget. Sorry, compared from adopted to revised. And again, the bulk of that, again, student count, a lower than predicted student count. District additional assistance is approximately the same. That's the amount the state provides for capital funding, although you do have the flexibility to move that over into M&O, which historically most districts do. And that was done in July, and that's been kept there. So district additional assistance, flexible. It's flexible. You can keep it in capital. You can keep it in M&O. Majority of districts do move it over into M&O side because it, and rely on, you do have your capital override, and you do have especially the new bond election, which you can fund significant capital projects. On the capital side, there was an increase, primarily based on three things. Purchase orders that closed after the adopted budget was completed. Purchase orders and expenditures for the prior year can actually occur into July and September for the prior year. So there is actually prior year fiscal activity occurring after your budget is adopted. Some purchase orders are closed. For instance, especially in plant services, you might write a purchase order to air conditioning service for $100,000. You may only spend $85,000 or $75,000. So you recapture some of those funds when the purchase order is closed. And also, speaking to Cheryl White, who developed your budget with Mr. Norris, they used a very conservative estimate. Some of those carry forwards you are estimating at the time you build your adopted budget. And you want to be very conservative. You never want to, on your carry forward, have to reduce what your expected carry forward. It's always nice to be able to increase it when you get final figures. The budget also on the M&O override, it's just a slight change in the M&O override. Again, primarily M&O override is a percentage of your revenue control limit. And since that went down slightly, your M&O override dropped slightly, but only about $50,000. And the bigger figure now is in your carry forward. You can carry forward money from M&O and capital. And you can see on the M&O side, again, they used a very conservative estimate in July, that 1.3 million. Now it's gone to 4.3 million for a variety of reasons. Start with number one, a very conservative estimate. Number two, purchase orders that get closed after your budget was adopted. For instance, I think I pointed out an example, some special education purchase orders. I think for contracted services, I think there were $2 million encumbered on purchase orders, but we only spent $750,000 on those purchase orders. That's a recapture in your budget capacity of, about 1.3 million. And with an accumulation of multiple purchase orders, there are thousands of purchase orders. And by the time the end of the year they close, purchase orders that for which we have not spent what is encumbered is recaptured.
Dr.
And-
Allen,
Yes,
really quick, I wrote down the words carry forward and carry over. Are those?
yes, my
The
apologies.
same?
They're the same.
Okay,
Yes.
just to make
Carry forward,
sure my notes.
yes, carry
match up.
forward
I
or carry budget balance carry over,
just
same,
wanted to be
same
clear.
term.
Thank you very much.
Prop 123 funds, that's just from a proposition that didn't change significantly. And then finally, your budget limit from 54 million to 56 million. You can see that increase in 2 million is attributed to your increased carry forward. So your revenue control limit declined because the estimated students declined, but your total budget increased because the carry forward was higher than anticipated. So now any questions on the data in that table?
I have a question. I'm not sure it's on this table. Maybe I missed it. Why was there an increase for our special education budget? Is that a result of more students being classified in that category?
It would be in anticipation, right? Anticipation also on the special education side. On the contracted services side, they anticipated a higher need for contracted services because we can't always find certified staff on payroll. So many more are working on the contracted services piece. So I'll go to the next slide. This is hard to read, but this is right from page 6 in your budget. It's the summary of the federal and state projects. You can see on your adopted budget, it was estimated we would roll over about 70 million. And again, most of that is your ESSER money that is still remaining. But there was a lot of fiscal activity that occurred for last year's budget through July. There could even be expenditures. You can be expending in July and September for the prior year. So it dropped about 14 million. So, and just essential cleanup of a lot of the grant activities that would have occurred over the summer. And there's really nothing surprising, nothing at all surprising there. That's just end of year cleanup and just journaling expenditures into last year's grant funds. And I think that is all the data I have to present. So I'd like to summarize. Your M&O budget from your adopted to your revised. The number of students has declined from what was estimated. So it's called your revenue control limit. Number of students times per pupil amount, that declined about $1 million. That makes sense. You had fewer students. However, the carry forward from the prior year increased from what was estimated. So that's why your overall budget increased on the M&O side. On the capital side, again, just at the end of the year cleanup, a low or a conservative estimate on carry forward or carryover, and then a more realistic number now, it's increased. And then again, grants, some activity that occurs after the adopted budgets are presented, finally gets attributed or applied to last year's funds. And so you can see how much we carry forward or carry over from that.
I have a quick question. Just to fully understand. So the cleanup part, is that kind of the same thing as when we like reconcile at the end of?
Yes, a lot of
Okay,
journal
and then-
entries get done. There's reconciliations, absolutely. And some of it is also activity through the county treasurer. Things might not have cleared through the county treasurer, especially by the time you're doing your adopted budget. We do transactions here, we have, our software Visions, but everything passes through us to the county treasurer. And, there certainly could be a month delay in both revenue posted on our side or expenditures posted. It's just a delay. It's like doing your bank account. If you write a check in, the first of the month, you're not maybe seeing something until your statement at the end of the month.
Got
The
it.
county treasurer does the same. We do reconciliations with their statements.
Perfect. Then I've got another question. Is the carry forward the same thing as our rainy day fund? Just to
That's
get
a really
terms
good question.
from each
You
administration.
can consider it as a rainy day fund. You do want carry forward each year because obviously if you don't have carry forward, you have overspent your budget. And I mean, the red flags are all over the place when you do that. So
Right.
yes, you try to always have carry forward, especially in a district with declining enrollment. I mean, our enrollment declined, almost a couple of hundred kids or whatever that number was. And it's declined, several hundred kids over the last few years. So that your budget is going to continue to decline, except for whatever the state funds through inflation. That number, if you go back to the slide where I had the table with all the figures, that base level amount per student, by statute, the legislature is supposed to increase that by 2% every year. Well, we know for the last 10, 15 years, that always hasn't been the case. So the amount we get per student is going to increase, but only 2%. I mean, unless there's generosity on behalf of the legislature. So you'll get a little more per student, but it's offset by the decline in students. So that's why you really have to build your expenditures below your budget capacity in anticipation of, again, declining enrollment, so that whatever you build, you have to be able to sustain it for your future ADM. Everything is driven by kids. So
I have one more hopefully quick question.
that's quite all right.
You mentioned some districts will move the DAA money over to the M&O
Mhm.
budget, and I was just wondering maybe an example of why we do that, and then about when does that normally happen? Is it at the
You
end of the
typically
year?
will do that in the adopted budget. You'll learn what your district additional assistance is when you're creating your initial budget. Even in your proposed budget that you'll see in June, you probably had the June meeting where your proposed budget was presented to you. And I didn't look at it, but I'm assuming DAA was on the M&O side then, and it was kept there through the adopted budget. It is, given how Arizona funds capital, which is they underfund capital. It's as simple as that. So that's why districts have to go out you have your capital override, $3 million a year for the next 7 years. You have your prior bond election, you have your new bond election. Those are for capital projects. So because you're heavily invested on the supplement side for capital, that's why you would move your district additional assistance back over to M&O. Because the state simply it doesn't adequately fund the capital side. I don't want to take an overly aggressive stance on that, but that's a highly documented story in Arizona.
Perfect. You explained it. It makes much more sense now. Thank you.
And so the adopted budget you'll have, again, later tonight, it will be up for approval. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Allen. Is it?
Thank you, Dr. Allen and President Trujillo. This would be the time where we have an opportunity to ask anyone that wants to share about the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Davila Hagigat. Do we have any one in the community that would like to speak regarding our revised budget? Hearing none. I believe it's about 5:45 almost. Can we resume to regular session now, Mr. Thomas? Perfect. Awesome.
A motion that we return to regular session.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, that motion?
Thank you. Ms. Kim, may we please have a roll call vote?
Yes.
Was Dr. Diaz? Okay, thank you. Ms. Trujillo,
Aye.
Ms. Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Vink,
Aye.
and Dr. Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, our motion does pass and we will resume to our regular meeting. Thank you very much, Dr. Allen, for the information. With that, Dr. Davila Hagigat, we are ready for the superintendent's report. Item D1, please.
President Trujillo, members of the board, cabinet. Today, I get to share the floor with Ms. Linda Jeffries for the first superintendent's report. She's the Director of Communications, and she will share with us about our recruiting efforts on Saturday, November 19th. Over to you, Ms. Jeffries.
Thank you, Dr. Hagigat. President Trujillo, members of the governing board, I had the privilege of attending a citywide event on Saturday, November 19th, which was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. It was a community-wide festival where we had the opportunity to meet hundreds, if not thousands, of people who attended this festival. It was really great to be able to be part of the community and to be able to talk with the community members. Now, this was a widely publicized event as it was hosted by a local news station here in town. So I had the opportunity to talk with members of the community from not only Phoenix Elementary, but I talked with individuals from Buckeye, from Levine, from Mesa, from Scottsdale, from Ahwatukee. And so it was just a great opportunity to be able to connect with families, had the opportunity to talk with many parents of young preschoolers. And as you've heard over the last several months, our emphasis on preschool and attracting young preschool students to our school district. Also had the opportunity to connect with our current students. And so we had a number of our own families attend this event. We had students from Bethune, from Lowell, from Edison, Emerson, Whittier, Magnet. So it was just a great opportunity to be able to and share the great things that are happening in Phoenix Elementary. We did have a display table. We had a QR code. We handed out brochures. We talked about preschool. We asked families to scan our QR code to start the enrollment process. And so it was just a great time. I had the opportunity, I spent about almost 5 hours that afternoon, morning and afternoon, and it was nonstop people walking through our lines from 10 o'clock until almost 3. And then, of course, that event went on through the evening, but I was there until about 3 o'clock. And so it was especially enjoyable for me to be able to talk and recruit hopefully former students and to retain some of our current students here in Phoenix Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. Also on Friday, December 9th, Herrera School is hosting a tree planting event. We just had Capitol, and again, thank you, Vice President Bueno, for supporting that. And we want to thank our partnership with Tree Matters and their Trees for Schools program. The trees are being donated to the school and will help to beautify the campus. And it's also going to increase the free canopy in downtown Phoenix and provide lasting benefits for generations. As we head into the winter months, we want to be cautious of the many illnesses we are seeing throughout the country and the county. We want to remind families, students, and staff that if you're not feeling well, please stay home. I'm one example of that, and we want to make sure that we're not spreading some of this illnesses around. We do encourage people to seek medical attention if they need it, and right now we're working on seeing if we can bring some of the clinics to our nearby areas. We know that we can access flu shots and other shots as part of the different pharmacies, but we want to make it more accessible to our families. We just haven't built that partnership. So if anyone's listening to us out there, please reach out to us or return some of our requests of making sure that we can bring these partnerships to our families. I also want to thank everyone for a great first semester. This will be our very last board meeting. And we've had fantastic learning and great safety protocols. And we've just had a really, really nice semester. Let's finish really strong in the next few days. Once we leave on break on December 22nd, I want to wish everyone a restful and fun break. And to our board members, thank you for a fantastic first semester. We're almost there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davila Hagigat. With that, we will move on to any board reports that we've got. Do we have any board members who would like to share this evening?
Yes, I would just like to echo Dr. Davila Hagigat's sentiments about staying safe during flu season and other illnesses that are happening in this cold winter season. So we'll be on the lookout to make sure we provide those resources to our community to be protected, including masks and vaccinations. And then I just also want to just elaborate a little bit more about the tree planting. Mr. Carrillo and I have been partnering with different organizations to bring tree canopy shade on our properties, on our different campuses. So I led the Capitol School planting that was facilitated with our neighborhood association. And Mr. Carrillo's been working with Herrera and Trees Matter on that site. So again, I had previously also opened the offer to all our principals to work with the city of Phoenix. They do have some ARPA monies that they will be facilitating next year. So that'll be on the lookout for us to partner with the city of Phoenix. So again, I wish everybody safe holidays and thank you so much for such a successful semester.
Thank you, Ms. Bueno. I had a few board reports. I do want to share and send a congratulations message out to board member Reginald Carrillo. He did get married this past weekend. So definitely want to send him tons of congratulations and celebrations his way. He'll be back with us in a few weeks. But I was also invited to attend an episode of All in Education's Pa Que Sepas, where episodes are focused on exploring issues that create barriers, not only at home, but at school for students. And some of those issues definitely are things that our kids face. Not to get into those, but their YouTube channel is full of those episodes. But the connection made was they shared that they've been in touch with our Garfield and Edison principals, and we will finally be able to carry out our Parent Educator Academy, which we partnered with them a few years ago. So they'll be looking to kind of recruit parents and things like that, and that'll all begin in January. So I'm really excited to see that take off. It's been a long time coming. And I was also present for the tree planting that Ms. Bueno has been a huge advocate for. So that was really fun to attend. Dr. Davila Hagigat was there as well. So just thank you both for all the representation and all the beautification that we've got going on in the district right now. I can only imagine what we'll get accomplished in the next year. Thank you all very much. And like Dr. Davila Hagigat says, we want to wish everybody a healthy break, a happy holiday season. And I'm we do have a work study session coming up, but this is our last board meeting with Dr. Diaz. And so I'm really grateful we got to take some time and really share some space with her to just appreciate and definitely honor the time that it takes to be a board member, and just really how she's grown from deciding to run as a candidate. So we are going to be supportive of any and everything you choose to do, Dr. Diaz. And I'm just really grateful to have been on this journey with you. So I don't like farewells. I just am grateful that we are going to remain peers. I still am going to hold you as a mentor, colleague, and all of the above. So I'll thank you in advance for that. But really, we appreciate you, and I'm sad. I'm sad a little today for this departing, but I am so grateful to have served alongside you. Thank you.
And so, like when you are kind of like in shock at first, you forget what you want to say. That happened to me earlier. So I'm sorry, sad that my husband left because I meant to thank him. But I really do want to take the time just quickly to thank my fellow board members. Each of you helped me to grow in different ways, and I'm a learner by observation, and seeing how you guys lead has inspired me. And I also want to thank our cabinet members. I know that sometimes maybe my expectations were a little like high and nerve-wracking. I don't know. But I thank you for putting up with me and helping me to become a better person as well. And specifically, I know that most of our site staff are not here any longer, but if you are listening, and I admire those of you who are truly out in our community, whether it's at our school sites, whether it's maintenance and operations, taking our students back and forth from schools to their homes. You are what makes our district go round. You are helping our students become the best version of themselves. And it is just, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because I'm going to start crying, and that's going to be ugly. And yeah, so we won't go there, but I'm truly grateful. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I am taking away from this experience is you guys have taught me how to be much more of a servant leader, and you've given me a better sense of how to be compassionate and kind and patient, and really taking a step back and seeing the perspective from people that, maybe we didn't share the same perspective, but by hearing, you out, I have grown as a person. So I'm a lot better of an individual after this. And I want to thank my husband, who's not here at the moment, for being the rock for our family. Well, I've been engaged in my school board, and I want to thank my little Teddy and Lou for sharing their mama with the community. So thank you guys.
Last comment, I forgot that our ESPA Association sent an email to thank you for your service on the governing board. They had a shortage in staff today, so they weren't able to come, but they planned to, but definitely wanted to send their regards. So I'm really glad they got that email out to us. So please know our transportation department was thinking about you too. All right, everyone, with that, we will move on to item F1, which is the time for the public to comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically on the agenda, and any actions taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, and it may come up on a future agenda. So with that, I hear we don't have any community communications, but we do have someone in the boardroom that's here to make public comment. May we please welcome Mr. Devin Del Palacio to the dais, please. Representative Devin Del Palacio, my apologies. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Madam President, Madam Vice President, board members, superintendent, cabinet members, and esteemed guests. My name is Devin Del Palacio, and I have the honor of serving as a neighboring board member, not too far from here. Well, I'm kidding, it's far, Tolleson, in the Tolleson Union High School District. And I also have the honor of serving as a state representative, but more importantly, I am an alum of Phoenix Elementary School District and a proud former student of Kenilworth. And so I'm here tonight to simply just commend the board for your leadership on governance. I understand a week ago you adopted the student outcome focused governance model, and I think that's just tremendous. We all know how a functioning board can lead to student achievement, an increase in student achievement. So what you all have done and the way you are leading is a prime example of how all governing boards should look to lead. And so I wanted to publicly commend you all from one servant leader to another for the work that you're doing here. I'd also like to add on to all the comments for Dr. Diaz. I've known her for quite some time. And in fact, before she ran, we met to discuss what it would look like running for school board. And I'm just so proud of your leadership. We led through some very tough times through the thick of the pandemic, 2020, up until now. And, your service is not lost on any of us. We know it's a sacrifice on your family. We know it's a sacrifice on your time. We all know we're unpaid to do this work, but we're all passionate. We're here for the betterment of our community and truly our students. And I know although sometimes you might not feel the immediate impact you've made, I want you to know that you've certainly made an impact on students for generations to come. So thank you for your service. And that concludes my comments. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much. Oh. Okay. That was a really good experience. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda, item G3. Or not. This is why a stapler helps. Goodness, G1, my apologies. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented this evening?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alicia Vink, I'll second.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kim, whenever you're ready, if we could have a roll call vote to to approve our consent agenda this evening.
Ms. Trujillo,
Aye.
Ms. Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Vink,
Aye.
Dr. Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, our motion does pass and our consent agenda is approved. The consent agenda lists several items for approval by the board in a single motion. These items listed under the consent agenda have gone through the superintendent's cabinet review and recommendation. Documentations concerning these items has been provided to the board members and the public as part of the itemized agenda. Thank you all for moving that forward. We can move on to which letter?
H1.
Item H1, yes.
Yes, today I'm going to turn the attention over to Dr. Gonzalez, and she will have the opportunity to share a little bit with us about building a strong foundation. This is an update on early childhood program. Dr. Gonzalez, over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Davila Hagigat. Madam President, members of the board, members of our community, and members of our cabinet, I'm very pleased to introduce Ms. Diane Salazar. She is our principal of Faith North, and she is helping us to build a strong foundation. And when we talk about a strong foundation, one of the things that we're talking about is really understanding how important the developmentally appropriate practices are across the board. And so this morning, we were able to spend a couple of hours at the Children's Museum, led in professional development by Ms. Salazar and Angie Eddington, our IEIS at Faith North. They were leading us in understanding how to lead and how to conduct observational assessments by watching how students play and interact and understanding what kinds of learning are taking place in those observational experiences. It was a wonderful opportunity for us. And of course, one of the principals was very keen to ask, is this just kindergarten and preschool, or do we continue this? And so it was a great opportunity for us to say, we're talking about early childhood practice, which begins in preschool. It begins earlier than that, but for our purposes, begins in preschool and will continue through third grade. But we don't stop then. We're going to continue building on this so that we are talking about high engagement, high rigor, high enthusiasm in all of our classrooms so that our students who are getting this strong foundation have outlets that continue to carry them forward through the rest of their K-8 years, but into high school and after that, what they choose to do with that, hopefully college and exciting careers. So we're going to tell you, we're giving you a little bit of an update on what we've been doing with early childhood. This is one of our foundational pieces to what we're working on as a district. And Ms. Salazar is going to present that with us and share some of the updates of where we've been and where we're going. Ms. Salazar.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, and thank you, Board President Trujillo, Vice President Bueno, members, Dr. Fink and Dr. Diaz. Thank you, Cabinet and community members, for this opportunity to give you an update on the work that we've been doing. It's very inspiring to me. This is a passion of mine. And so today was really a wonderful day for me. So, you know, we've seen this slide before when I presented last May, but it's really, we always want to go back to the why. Why are we investing in our early childhood programs? The research tells us that children will be better prepared for kindergarten, will need fewer special education services. They'll graduate from high school in higher rates, have better job prospects, and enjoy better health throughout their lives. So this is really important for our students, for our families, and we are really excited about the growth that we've seen, not only with individual students, but in our program, generally speaking. So as we look at this theory of, and we look at the research, and we consider the impact of early childhood programs on future academic success and social emotional well-being, just from the short presentation, you can see how our program is impacting our students and our families. We want to really get to that 5-star quality first rating in all of our preschool programs across the district so that all of our students have the opportunity to have those experiences and have the access to this early learning. We are focused on developmentally appropriate practice. We are looking to increase the skills of our leadership, as we did today with our leadership team meeting held at the Children's Museum. Was a wonderful experience. We had a lot of aha moments, genuine aha moments, which brings me great joy. We are building our partnerships in the community. We really are looking, we have our creative curriculum and play-based learning. Our leaders in our classroom, we're hoping that we know they will be able to, with professional development, to use and understand observational assessments. We are looking to earn our quality first star ratings. We've been assessed. We're in process with our new programs. Our existing programs have been assessed. We raised our star rating in our Garfield program. And as I said, we are looking to increase our community and family partnerships. So our outcomes are to have 100% of Phoenix preschools trained, staff trained leaders implementing developmentally appropriate practice by 2025. 100% of our Phoenix #1 preschool students will demonstrate an on-track reading proficiency, and some of the data we have to share with you will demonstrate where we are in that growth. And we also want to have all of our preschools earn a quality first star rating by 2025. We will have our initial star ratings this year, and then in the following years, we'll go into our regular assessment rounds. Faith North is due for assessment next year, and all of the different sites have different assessment dates. And we also want 100% of our families to recommend our preschool programs across the district to friends and families. So over the past 3 years, since 2020, we've made great progress in both Head Start, expanding our Head Start programs, as well as our preschool programs. In 2020, which why not? During the pandemic, we created 2 dual language preschool classrooms at Faith North. In 2021-22 school year, we added Head Start classroom at Dunbar. And we also transferred those 2 dual language program preschool classrooms to Herrera. And we also transferred a general education preschool classroom from Faith North to Whittier, so that we weren't adding additional classrooms necessarily, just shifting placement so that all of our students at all of our schools will have an opportunity to attend a high quality preschool program, either through Head Start or through our district preschool program. This year, we were excited to add Booker T. Washington Head Start classroom at Lowell and at Garfield. We also added our district preschool program at Emerson, and we started our leadership training program, and we'll get into more details about that in just a minute. So at this point, all of our schools have an early childhood program, either through Head Start or preschool, minus Magnet, and hopefully we'll move forward with Magnet next year. So when we think about our percentage of students transitioning to our kindergarten program, this is really a very strong recruitment strategy. You know, we can't compare perfectly because of the challenge of knowing how many Head Start and pre-K students could transition based on their birthday. And we also have early kinder entry and other factors that make it a little bit harder to track, but we are collecting that data. So you can see that we had 75% of our Head Start students transition to our kindergarten program in 2021, and we had 69% in 21-22. As far as our preschool students, we had 60%. Greater number of students served. We had a 60% transition to our kindergarten programs and 64% in 21-22. So we are working on this. We want to make sure our preschool students that we serve at Faith North and our other preschool programs in the district transition to our kindergarten programs. And the data from ADE will tell us why that is so important, not only for retention and recruitment of students, but also for student progress. So we recently had our meeting with Arizona Department of Education. the Exceptional Student Services Department, and we reviewed the data from last school year, and we're very proud of the progress that we made. If you look at the outcome areas, we have outcome A, and it's a group of outcomes within outcome A, but based in the social emotional skill development, outcome B in the acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and then outcome C, the use of appropriate behaviors to meet needs. The yellow bar is the state target, and you can see that it's right around 64%. The state average is around 59 to 60%-ish in the brown. And if you look at our outcomes, we far succeed all of the other, the state and the state target, and we exceed the state average. So this is a celebration. Our students are meeting those expectations that the state has set for them, and that is something that really makes us very happy. When we consider our students that are coming to us, our exceptional students that are coming to us, and all of this data is regarding our exceptional students, we can also see when we think about those 3 outcome areas and we consider whether or not our students are within age expectations in those areas, again, we far exceed the state target as well as the state average. So for social emotional skills, 86% of our students are exiting preschool within the age expectations. For social emotional skills, 72% for acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and then 82% for use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. And those are those adaptive skills. So another celebration.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this data represents, you said only the exceptional students. Can you define that?
So our exceptional students are students who are have an IEP. So what, the data is derived from the Office of Special Education Programs exit. And that's something that I conduct at the end of each school year. And that's just based on the data, the assessment data that teachers are already collecting. And the exceptional student services at the State Department. Then once I've completed the OSEP exit, the State Department will kind of look at those averages across the state where we are, in comparison, and then they share that data with us. It's always very helpful.
Thank you. That's very helpful to know. And do we capture this data with students who do not fall in that category?
We have some additional data.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So that's perfect lead in. Thank you. So when we're considering success in kindergarten, in looking at on-track reading, when we consider spring of 2021, 4% of our Head Start students showed progress in AIMS. Spring of 2022, 48%. When we think about our preschool students, so these are comparing our Head Start students to our preschool students, 22% were showing progress in spring of 2021 as compared to 35% in spring of 2022. And those students who had no preschool experience, no Head Start experience, those percentages are substantially lower at 12% and 25%. So we are making an impact on academic growth for our kindergarten students. When we consider our iReady reading, iReady Math, and Ames Web Plus, the blue line demonstrates our students who participated in our early childhood programs as compared with the orange line. For our students who did not participate in our early childhood programs in kindergarten, you can see that those students who had the early childhood experience, showed substantial growth as opposed to those students who did not have an opportunity to participate in one of those programs. And that is both Head Start and preschool, our district preschool program.
I have a quick clarifying question.
Uh-huh.
Is the curriculum that we use the same for both Head Start and our program? And yes.
Yes, the same. It's the creative curriculum.
Okay.
And they also use the Teaching Strategies Gold assessments, all of Head Start and all of our preschool. So it is like curriculum and like assessments they're using. I think there are some differences in programming, but more so in the credentials of staff.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so their teachers would be employed by Head Start, whereas
Yes.
ours, okay.
Yes,
Makes sense.
absolutely. So we have two Head Start programs within our district. We have Booker T. Washington Head Start that has our center at 15th Avenue or 15th Street in Polk. And then we have our G-Pool, Greater Phoenix Urban League, has a Head Start at ASU Prep and at near Lowell at Marcos Denisa. But BTW is actually on site
Okay.
at Lowell.
Okay, makes sense.
So most of our schools are with Booker T. Washington Head Start. It's just those two other sites that are with Greater Phoenix Urban League.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So when we look at our first grade students and iReady Reading, Math, and Ames Web Plus, we still see this overall, increased growth or increased progress or achievement for our students who have participated in our early childhood programming. You can see in each one of those areas, we've had, greater progress for our students who have participated in our program. And again, in second grade, it continues. So the impact of our preschool and Head Start programs are really critical in over long-term success of our students. And so we really want to recognize that not only as their individual achievement, but also in recruiting potential families for enrollment. Families want their children to succeed, and so do we. So this really shows how we're doing with that. Okay. So our successes, I know that Dr. Gonzalez mentioned a few. We have all of our preschool programs are Quality First recognized. They're all part of Quality First. Quality First is very important for us moving forward because those star ratings we can earn scholarships as we consider a fee-based program. So we really are really happy to report that Faith North, Kenilworth, and Garfield are 3-star programs, which would allow us to have scholarship programs. Herrera Dual Language Preschool, they have an initial star rating of 2 stars, which is quite good considering it's the initial rating. And they are receiving support from Quality First, which is also an important factor in our collaboration with Quality First. They have supportive mechanisms. They have coaches that work with our teachers and what's developmentally appropriate and how they can improve their practices as part of those star ratings. So the star rating, with Herrera Dual Language Preschool, because they have a 2-star rating, it's actually beneficial to us because they receive additional coaching time. So that's really important. All of our preschools are DES recognized sites. which also is important as we move towards implementing a fee-based program, because those we can then have families apply for childcare support through DES. We are working to provide professional development for early childhood developmentally appropriate practices. And we started in November. And we had a session today that was really just really inspiring for me. And I think we had a lot of aha moments in there. So that's exciting. We are also partnering with ASU and Child's Play to develop a program. We've worked with Child's Play in the past, but we really focused on language development with the general population. And through the work with Faith North, there was a recognition that we really need to consider how this impacts and how we can allow all students, regardless of ability, to participate in those dramatic, I'm losing my words. The iPlay program, which is basically drama in literature in the classroom. So the grant was submitted yesterday to complete, to kind of move to the next level. And this is more of a collaborative program where myself and my leadership team will be working, and my teachers will be working to identify those strategies that really help to include our diverse student population. We are working towards January. We are going to be working with principals from other sites to do some observations both at Faith North and on their sites to understand the observational assessment. We have the implementation of the KEA, the Kindergarten Entry Assessment. It's a pilot year this year. The expectation from ADE is that we have 25% of our kindergarten students by the end of the year, their data in 25% of each class. And next year we'll have 100% implementation. So we felt like this is a really great year to really think about how, not only how we assess our kindergarten students coming into us upon entry, but also how to provide those developmentally appropriate learning opportunities for them.
I have a question. I see that all our preschools are DES recognized sites. Are any of those also child care center recognized?
Yes, absolutely. All of our sites, in order to serve a preschool population, have to be licensed by Arizona Department of Health Services. So all of our sites, before they're even able to open the doors, are DHS, ADHS licensed sites.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move to the next?
I have a few questions to follow up on Vice President Bueno's question. I know in the past there was a little bit of talk around this. I'm not sure if we've resurfaced it. I understand that this is a phased rollout, but is there still consideration at expanding to 0 to 3, or I think 3 is like the cutoff, right? And I just asked based on, the population for whom we serve, and just knowing that is, that's an area of need. And then additionally, on top of that, is there consideration for extending the hours of operation? For instance, I specifically didn't enroll Teddy in pre-K here because the hours wouldn't have worked with my job.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Both of those are initiatives that we are exploring. We did at one point I worked with Plant Services and Mr. Norris when he was with us at how we might be able to use classroom space at Faith North. There are very specific requirements for the 0 to 3 age range that would require some modifications to facilities. So that really held us back, but it's not off the table. I would love to see a 0 to 3 space in our district. So definitely something that we've discussed and explored a little bit. As far as the second question,
Extended hours.
the extended hours. So that's something also on the radar. I have it on my to-do list. Part of the issue, it was on my priority list for this year. Part of the problem that I'm having is staffing. I'm understaffed at Faith North, and it really makes it difficult because of the staffing. So hopefully we can get to a point where we are comfortable with the staffing enough, because at this point we have more contracted instructional assistants, and that limits the amount of time that they can be with us. And our regular district IAs are also limited. So when we think about extending those hours, it becomes problematic because of staffing. That said, I have plans to reach out to one of our local preschool programs, Bright Horizons, to see if we could develop a collaboration to extend those hours somehow, either them coming onto campus or going to them.
Great. That's good to hear. And yeah, staffing is definitely an issue everywhere. We have lots and lots of open positions at ASU, so I get it. Another question that and I'm really happy to hear that you guys are thinking about that. Another question that I have is in terms of, and you know, if you don't know the numbers off the top of mind, that's fine, but just something to consider is, and for the board to consider for the new year is capacity. So understanding what is the capacity of our current program, and are we at capacity with students, or what is that gap? And does that mean we have the opportunity to recruit more students within this age range? And I know that it's quite difficult to determine which one of our households have students within this target age range, but what is that marketing plan to get our name out there? I am sure you have seen the Raising Arizona Kids newsletter that goes out. I just got an email and I opened it, and the first thing that I see just front and center, the only thing on the email is an advertisement for Madison Elementary. And I'm just like, well, how did they get that? That's like a prime advertisement. So, you know, just thinking about some of those things. And we have a lot of kids here. I know personally, because we're always riding our bikes throughout the neighborhood. Carmen has seen us, or board president Trujillo has seen us. So I know there are kids out there that need our services. Do you have just off top of mind? If not, it's okay.
I can tell you that at our site-based campuses at Herrera and Emerson, Garfield, Whittier, Kenilworth, we are close to capacity with our typical students. We always leave space. We don't go to capacity. Our capacity is 20 students per classroom across the board, generally speaking, not at Faith North necessarily, but with our general education preschool classrooms. We always enroll 15 typical students, but we leave space because, as you know, our students are identified throughout the year through Child Find, and we always want to make sure that we have space to accommodate them, either at their home school, if that's an appropriate placement for them, or at Faith North. And so with the different classroom structures at Faith North, we are at capacity with typical students, but we are not at capacity yet with our exceptional students. And that is a function of the in-by-3 transition from Arizona Early Intervention programs to our district programs, which is a function of Child Find. And so we start the year, it seems under capacity because we've left those spaces for our exceptional students, because they have to be enrolled with us if the parents choose to do so. We can't say we're at capacity for our exceptional students. We always accept them. So we have to leave space for them. So we enroll our typical students to a certain capacity, knowing that we'll be filling those spots over the course of the year with our incoming 3-year-olds. It's as students turn 3 that they're enrolled.
I see. I mean, if I had a magic wand, we would prioritize a significant amount of our budget to making sure we had enough teachers to staff our pre-K pipeline, because, you know, we are reacting to challenges that build up over time from birth. And while it might take a long time to see the impact, by getting ahead and getting to those families from birth to 5, we would be making a long-term impact in the community. And I appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing to help us to get there. One last question that I had, and this is like a pain point for me, and I've been bringing it up for 4 years. For the board in the coming year, I think it would be more relevant, but really looking at our Montessori preschool model and how are we messaging the opportunity equitably across our community, because anecdotally speaking, that program serves again, anecdotally, I don't know the data this year, I don't know it. It is serving families like me, and I can pay. We need to make sure that that program is serving our families who can't afford $1,000 tuition at a private Montessori. So how are we going to message that equitably? Rhetorical question, but something to consider.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just going back to training our principals, November 1st, we had a session to introduce the principles of developmentally appropriate practice to principals, IEISs, and directors. This morning, we had our field trip to the Children's Museum of Phoenix. I think it was a wonderful experience, and it really connected those developmentally appropriate practices with the kindergarten entry assessment, and really looking at how we can support principals so that they are able to support their teachers in implementing this new type of assessment. Because, you know, we've been doing more of this paper pencil, computer type assessment, whereas this is a more of a play-based observational assessment. And looking forward to January and February, we'll be working with principals and IEISs to do co-walkthroughs at Faith North, and then moving back to their own sites to walk through their preschool and kindergarten classrooms. We are also looking to refresh our furniture in our preschool program. I'm not kidding when I say we have some preschool classrooms that are functioning on carpets and furniture that are 30 years old. And so that's in process. And we're also adding developmentally appropriate furniture back into the kindergarten classrooms, because a few years back, we had the idea that we should take all those kitchens and the blocks and take them out of our kindergarten classrooms. And we want to be supportive of the developmentally appropriate practice, and we need to have those items back in. So along with the furniture refresh for preschool, we are looking to add developmentally appropriate furniture to our kindergarten classrooms across the district.
Ms. Salazar, is the partnership with the Phoenix Children's Museum a new partnership?
We've been developing this collaboration over time. I met with Katie, who is the CEO for the Children's Museum it was during the pandemic. I remember it was the first time I went to a coffee house, like, without a mask, so it's a newer partnership, but I know Dr. Gonzalez and my IEIS, who's super fabulous, Angie Eddington. They met with Katie at the Children's Museum in June. I was not able to go because I had COVID, but they met. And so it's developing over time. We had a great session today, and we talked about working with the Children's Museum again to have a professional development session there.
Does the partnership also look like reduced passes for our children to enjoy? And
Yes.
is Faith North the only school that has this partnership with the Phoenix Children's Museum?
No. It's all of our preschool programs. And we actually just before the break had a community resource fair at Faith North that was open to all of our preschool families. And we had various agencies there, one of them being the Children's Museum of Phoenix, and they did hand out passes. We also are partnering with the Arizona Science Center to provide professional development and STEM and guided play through the Science Center. So we're reaching out to those community partners. So we have our ongoing KEA training that will be coming to us through ADE. Administrators will receive 2 hours of training for the kindergarten entry assessment. And then our kindergarten teachers will have 6 hours of training using the KEA. And we also have opportunities to partner with ASU, with Arizona Association for Educators of Young Children to provide developmentally appropriate practice training to teachers. So that's another aspect that we're working on. And our goal by March and April is to submit that initial 25% data set for our the kindergarten entry assessment, which is really not an entry assessment this year, but next year it will be conducted within the first 45 days. And we're also looking to have some preschool and kindergarten enrollment events in the coming months.
Salazar, I do have a quick question. I
Absolutely.
apologize for
No.
just to go back a few minutes. You mentioned new furniture and things like that. I was wondering if that also included gear or equipment for our playgrounds. Or is that just inside the classroom?
At this moment, it does not.
Okay.
But it is something that's on the radar because one of the things that I've noticed just with the sites that have preschools, some have bikes, some don't, some have helmets, some don't, so we want to create equity in access to those gross motor skills. We talked about that today at the Children's Museum, just how important that is for our children. So
Our children, yes, exactly. Because I mean,
Yes.
even our parks, that's always like an issue.
yes, absolutely.
So definitely hope that we will be on that train because it is such an important part. So thank you for the heads up. I think I have some information to probably pass on from the last conference I attended. And that's why I asked, because it became like a quick but great Q&A session. So definitely want to make sure I get that over to you. And I'm glad that
Great.
we are doing this work.
Yeah, great. And just, as a side note, Herrera, with their Quality First incentive money, they receive money for materials. They have focused, I've gotten 2 orders so far, and they've focused all of their orders on their outdoor gross motor play equipment. Yeah, so it's definitely on the radar. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and attention. And pass this over.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar.
I just wanted to also ask Dr. Hagigat that I believe when we saw this presentation in May, I think we also had requested updated marketing materials of how we would be able to start marketing to pre-K, Head Start, Kinder, to be able to push enrollment forward. So if I can get that in a board update, please.
Absolutely, we'll get that to you.
And just in terms of one additional resource, and you guys probably already know of this, but Burton Bar Library's Family Resource Center, they have a calendar, which, we can send our 0 to 3 parents to, or other kids who are not in there. Awesome.
Thank you for that extra resource. That's a great idea. I haven't been to the Burton Bar in a while. I've found an app called Libby that has like everything I could ever want. And so it's been a while since I've had to go to libraries, but I have had it on my radar because Christian needs to use the 3D printer. So I'm really glad you reminded me and reminded us what a resource that is. Moving on, if we don't have any further comments. Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Salazar, for the information. Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Davila Hagigat. With that, we'll move on to item I1 and request approval of a revised expenditure budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
President Trujillo, members of our board, cabinet and community, earlier, Dr. Allen shared with you the revised budget for the fiscal year 22-23. In this item, we are requesting that you approve said budget as presented.
Dr. Hagigat and Mr. Allen, I see on the attached document that we have in page 2 with the district contact information. I believe under our IT director, we have someone listed that is no longer in our district. So if we can update that before we submit it, please.
Yes, thank you for sharing that information with us. I see it now.
With that, I'll motion to approve the revised expenditure budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Alicia Vink, I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none at this time, may we please have a roll call vote to adopt this motion, Ms. Kim?
And may I clarify that it was Ms. Bueno who made the motion? Okay, thank you. Ms. Trujillo,
Aye.
Ms. Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Vink,
Aye.
and Dr. Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, our motion does pass. And with that, we'll move on to item I2, which is the great big group of policies we have for our second reading. Do you have any words to share with us, Dr. Gonzalez, regarding this?
Madam President and members of the board, the table that was presented in your board update does have some refinements to language that were suggested to us by legal. We did not receive any other requests for changes to language from the first read. So if everyone is okay with the suggestions from legal, we are prepared to ask for your approval for these policy changes.
Dr. Gonzalez, I didn't get past the second page fully. Are the red markings I do see where it literally says in there that legal had made some corrections. But I did want to open it up and see if any other board members may or may not feel prepared to adopt all of these policies. Just with everything going on, like I said, I didn't get past the second page, but so I would like to, I guess, hear from the board if everybody has had time to look them over and everybody's in agreement. We can move forward with a motion to vote on this, but definitely wanted to
Madam
hear from
President,
the board.
if you're not prepared to adopt them, we can table it and bring it to the January, if that would be better for people.
Well, that's why I was hoping to ask the board. I don't want to make a huge adjustment just because I'm the only one that didn't finish the list. So I wanted to, but I do appreciate the suggestion, but I would love to hear from the board.
Madam President, it doesn't personally matter to me. However, I do wonder legally whether we are pressed to approve. I just know in my own classroom, we are now doing a moment of silence or something because of these legal changes. So that's my only concern. But I am prepared to vote tonight, but am not.
Madam President, Ms. Fink, Dr. Fink, sorry. The law has, when these are changes made from the last legislative session, they had a general effective date. I think it was of September 24th. So it is the current law now. You want your policies to reflect what the current law is. So because you're bound to follow the law, regardless of whether it's in your policy or not. Being in your policy, it just gives your folks and your public, notice that this is what the law is, and this is the policies that you're following. Again, you still have to follow the law even today, whether you adopt the policies or not.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for the clarification. I do trust that wholeheartedly, and I'm ready to go ahead and move forward with this. It is one of those things where you read the policy and then you read so many of them that you start to get confused. So that's the only thing is I go through them and I'm like, wait, did I do that one already? So it's not because I haven't seen it before. It's literally because it just, that running few days of memory in my head, that's where I just question my own self about did I have a question? Did I have a comment? But so I would like to move forward with it if that's all right with everyone.
What do you mean move forward? Like vote on it today or push it to January?
Well, I'll vote on it today to be in compliance mostly. So I appreciate that, Mr. Thomas. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
So with that, do I hear a motion to go ahead and adopt these policies as presented for this evening?
Alicia Vink, so moved.
Elora Diaz, I second.
Thank you both very much for helping me through this. Ms. Kim, may we please have a roll, sorry, really quick, any discussion, any questions before we move on? Great. Ms. Kim, may we please have a roll call vote to adopt item I2 as presented?
Ms. Trujillo,
Aye.
Ms. Bueno,
Aye.
Dr. Vink,
Aye.
Dr. Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. With that, our motion does pass and we can move on. Let's see to item, wow. J1 already, our board requests. Do we have any board requests to share this evening? I have a few. Two that kind of go together, and I did hear the requests earlier from Vice President Ms. Bueno regarding marketing materials for preschool, and then also Dr. Diaz's recommendations and resources that she shared earlier. So I did note those. But last week I attended a high school campus, and then I was recently invited to a few other swearing in ceremonies for incoming school board members. And just noticing the presentation at these campuses, their board members are up in the lobbies, their offices of the schools, and then in the other governing boardrooms that I got to see, they also have their board members up in the boardroom as well. So I really was hoping that we could join on this representation action and start including the current board members, of course, our administration, our new superintendent, AB Davila Hagigat, to really have a presence in our schools, so that way our community knows who is representing us, who their school leadership team is, and I just kind of would like to see when, how much, and when something like that might be possible. So if I could put that request out there, I can't really compartmentalize that into smaller words, but I hope that makes sense.
Yes, I captured it, President, Trujillo, and we'll look into what we can do to be able to represent that type of interest.
I appreciate it. And it leads me into also requesting that maybe we have our incoming board member, Erica De La Rosa, come to our next work study session and also hold her swearing in ceremony at the same time, because that, per the request of Dr. Elora Diaz, wanted to invite her to our work study session for the student outcome focused governance work that we're doing. So I just thought, since other districts are going to hit the ground running in January, maybe we consider doing that type of onboarding and stuff in December to be well prepared for January. So just another request to see if this is possible. And again, I did invite her per Dr. Diaz's request, and she accepted. So we did connect with our attorney, our district's attorney, Mr. Chris Thomas, and he shared that she is able to attend, however, would not be able to participate in any voting matters should we have any. So those are my two requests that were kind of joined into one. Do we have any others this evening? Hearing none, we can move on to future agenda items. I don't have any future agenda items. Do we have any other ones from the rest of the board? All right.
Sorry, I
go.
think this is
Thank you.
potentially a future agenda item that you all may want to consider. I learned, and you probably already know this, that at the Phoenix Union South Mountain School, they have an aeronautical program where the kids can actually earn their license to become a pilot before they graduate high school. So I know, President Trujillo, that one of your initiatives that you've really spearheaded is the 8th grade transition. So wondering, how we are exposing our students to some of our specialty schools in within like the Phoenix Union school sites, because there's a lot to offer and great opportunities for students who are interested in that.
Great suggestion. And yes, future agenda item, as in, maybe a presentation on that relationship with Phoenix Union, because I did recently hear that our liaison between the schools, the lady that would come to our graduation, she's retired now, Ms. Sean Anderson. So we do have another partnership coming in, but definitely this would be a great time to grow this partnership. So I think that's a great idea, because we do want to make sure that our kids are ready for high school, but also that we are sharing information for our McKinney-Vento students to make sure that they also have a hand reaching out on the other side to welcome them in, and if they still need services, or if they still need to qualify for services, that we don't cause a gap in services. So great idea. And I really appreciate, because I kind of, again, forgot that was on my mind. So thank you very much. Dr. Diaz, any other agenda items? Okay. With that, we can move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
Alicia Vink, so moved.
See, Laura Diaz, second. With that, Ms. Kim, may we please have a roll call vote to adjourn our meeting this evening?
I'm going to go backwards for Dr. Diaz. We're going to start with you for this one. So, Dr. Diaz.
After 4 years, aye.
Dr. Vink. Aye. Ms. Trujillo.
A reluctant but excited aye, yes.
And Ms. Bueno.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Our work study session is scheduled for December 21st at 10 a.m. And then our next board meeting is scheduled for next year, January 10th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. Definitely check our website, phoenixschools.org, for information on those. Happy holidays. And thank you for being with us this evening. We'll see you most